Your Honor, this woman is mentally incompetent and a danger to our child. David Garrison, my husband's voice, cut through the courtroom like a knife. I sat there trembling, tears streaming down my face as my husband of 14 years pointed his finger directly at me. She can't even remember to feed our daughter, Tameen shouted. She's not fit to be a mother. Judge Sarah Winter banged her gavel, the sound echoing in my chest. I could barely breathe. Everything felt like it was collapsing around me. Then Veronica Morris, my lawyer, stood up. Your Honor, we have a witness with critical evidence. Maya Pate, the defendant's daughter-in-law. I watched Tameen's face shift from anger to confusion, then to something darker, something that looked almost like fear. Maya walked toward the witness stand, a small USB drive clutched in her hand. I had no idea what Maya was about to show, but in 60 seconds, my entire marriage was about to unravel. Before we continue, have you ever trusted someone completely, only to discover they weren't who you thought they were? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see how this story ends, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Let me tell you how we got here. My name is Nayla Williams. I'm 56 years old. I was a single mother when I met Tameen. My son Russell was 5 years old, and I was working in marketing for a mid-sized firm in the city. The hours were long, the pay was decent, and I was trying my best to build a stable life for us. Russell's father had left when he was just a baby, so it had always been just the two of us against the world. Then Tameen walked into my life at a company networking event. He was charming, successful, confident in a way that made you feel safe just being near him. He had this warm smile, and he said all the right things. But more than that, he seemed genuinely interested in me, in my life, in Russell. On our third date, I told him I had a son. I braced myself for the usual reaction, the subtle withdrawal, the excuses about not being ready for that kind of responsibility. But Tameen surprised me. His face lit up. He told me he wanted to be a father to Russell, that he wanted to build a real family with us. He said he had always wanted children, and that meeting me felt like fate. We got married a year later in a small ceremony with our closest family and friends. Russell was the ring bearer. I remember looking at Tameen's face as he promised to love and cherish me, and I felt like the luckiest woman alive. I was so happy, so hopeful about our future together. After the wedding, Tameen suggested I leave my career to focus on our home. He made a good salary, he said, enough to support all of us comfortably. He wanted me to be there for Russell after school, to create the kind of stable home environment every child deserved. It made sense to me. I wanted to give Russell that stability, to create the family I had always dreamed of giving him. So I left my job. I left my career, my colleagues, my professional identity. I became a full-time wife and mother. Then came the years of trying for a baby together. Tameen wanted a child of his own, he said. A child we would create together. I wanted that too. I wanted to give him that gift, to expand our family. But it did not come easily. Month after month, the pregnancy tests came back negative. We tried for years. The struggles were real. The heartbreak was crushing. The endless hoping and waiting took a toll on both of us. I went through fertility treatments. I changed my diet, my exercise routine, everything. Month after month, year after year. But we kept trying because we believed it would happen eventually. Finally, when Russell was 15 years old, Zariah arrived, our beautiful, perfect daughter. I held her in the hospital and felt like our family was finally complete. Russell was so gentle with her, so protective. He was an amazing big brother from day one. But something changed in Tamain after Zariah was born. It was subtle at first. So subtle I told myself I was imagining things. His focus shifted entirely to our daughter, his biological child. He would introduce Russell as Nala's son, but Zariah as our daughter. He started referring to her differently, with a tone that separated her from Russell in ways that made me uncomfortable. There was a possessiveness in the way he talked about Zariah, a pride that felt exclusionary. When people complimented our family, he would smile and say, "Well, Zariah has my eyes." As if Russell, standing right there, did not matter. Russell noticed it too, though he never said anything directly. I could see it in the way he would go quiet when Tamain focused all his attention on Zariah. I could see it in the way he stopped asking Tameen for help with homework or advice about sports. He just quietly grew up, became more independent, more distant. When Russell turned 18, he moved out for college. 4 years later, he graduated and got a job in the city. 3 years ago, he married a wonderful woman named Maya. She was smart, observant, and kind. I liked her immediately. They had little Deborah shortly after, a beautiful baby girl who had just turned 2. My first grandchild. The first time I held Deborah, I cried tears of joy. I built this life brick by brick. I sacrificed my career, my financial independence, my professional identity, everything I had worked for, to create a home for my family. I poured everything into being the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect homemaker. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was building something that would last forever. But about 8 months ago, something started going terribly wrong with me. It started with exhaustion. Not the normal tiredness of running a household. Not the fatigue you feel after a long day of errands and chores. This was different. This was a bone-deep, soul-crushing exhaustion that made it hard to get out of bed in the morning. Some days I would wake up and feel like I had not slept at all, even though I had been in bed for 10 hours. Then came the confusion. I would forget simple things. I would walk into a room and forget why I went there. I would lose track of conversations mid-sentence, forget what I was saying, stare blankly at the person I was talking to. At first, I laughed it off as mom brain, as stress, as getting older. But it got worse. My hands developed tremors that made it difficult to hold a cup without spilling. I would pour coffee and watch my hand shake so badly that the liquid would splash over the rim. I started using travel mugs with lids just to avoid the embarrassment. I went to Dr. Patel, my primary care physician. I told her everything, the exhaustion, the confusion, the tremors. She took me seriously. She ran every test imaginable. Blood work to check for thyroid issues, vitamin deficiencies, anemia. CT scans to rule out brain tumors or lesions. Neurological exams to test my reflexes and cognitive function. Nothing came back conclusive. Everything looked normal on paper. Dr. Patel was puzzled. She suggested stress, maybe early onset of something neurological, possibly even early Parkinson's or MS, but she could not pinpoint what was wrong with me. She referred me to specialists. I saw a neurologist, an endocrinologist, even a psychiatrist who suggested my symptoms might be psychosomatic. Meanwhile, Tamain seemed concerned at first. He would ask how I was feeling, remind me to take my vitamins, make sure I made it to my appointments. He would drive me when I felt too weak to go alone. He seemed like a caring, worried husband. But as weeks turned into months, and I only got worse, his concern morphed into something else. Frustration, impatience, anger. "You're not the woman I married," he said one evening as I struggled to prepare dinner. My hands were shaking so badly I had dropped a plate, and it shattered on the kitchen floor. Another time, when I forgot to sign Zariah's permission slip for a school trip, and she came home crying because she could not go, Tamine snapped at me. You can't even take care of Zariah properly. What kind of mother forgets something so simple? The comments escalated over time. Maybe Zariah needs to be with someone more stable. Those words cut deeper than any knife. You're becoming a burden. I don't know how much longer I can do this. I started believing him. I started believing I was failing as a wife, as a mother, as a person. The woman I used to be, confident, capable, independent, was disappearing, and I did not know how to get her back. Russell visited often with Maya and baby Deborah. They would come over on weekends, bringing groceries, helping with housework. I could see the worry in Russell's eyes as he watched me struggle to hold my granddaughter. My hands would shake too much to support Deborah's weight safely. I would try to bounce her on my knee and nearly drop her. Maya would gently take Deborah from my arms with a kind smile, but I could see the concern pass between her and Russell. The doubt crept in slowly, insidiously, poisoning my thoughts just as surely as whatever was poisoning my body. Maybe I was incompetent as a mother. Maybe Tamine was right about me. Maybe I really was not fit to take care of Zariah anymore. Maybe I was losing my mind. 6 weeks ago, Tamine filed for divorce. I was served the papers on a Tuesday morning. I stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I had cooked thousands of meals for my family, and read through accusations that painted me as unstable, dangerous, unfit. He said I was an unfit wife and mother. And standing there in my fog, my hands trembling as I held those papers, part of me wondered if he was right. The divorce filing was brutal. Tamine's accusations felt like being stabbed over and over again with words designed to destroy me. He wanted full custody of 9-year-old Zariah, claiming I was mentally unstable and dangerous. Dangerous. To my own daughter. The child I had carried, birthed, and loved with every fibre of my being. But he did not stop there. He wanted all marital assets, the house we had built together, the savings I had contributed to before giving up my career, even my inheritance from my mother. Everything. He wanted to leave me with nothing. David Garrison, his lawyer, painted me as neglectful, incapable, a danger to our child. In the preliminary hearings, he used my symptoms against me. The trembling hands, the forgotten appointments, the confusion. He twisted my illness into evidence of incompetence. Tamine had lined up family members to testify against me. His sister Diane, his mother Barbara, even our neighbour Kenneth Hayes. People I had welcomed into my home, shared meals with, laughed with. They were all prepared to stand up in court and tear me apart. But the most painful part was not what he was doing to me. It was what he was doing to Zariah. He was poisoning our daughter against me. Russell told me that Zariah had been distant, confused. She would say things like, "Daddy says Mommy might not get better." She stopped hugging me as tightly. She stopped looking me in the eyes. When she came to Russell and Maya's house on weekends, she would repeat phrases that sounded rehearsed, coached. While playing with little Deborah, she would suddenly say things like, "My mommy can't take care of me anymore," or "Daddy says I'll be safer with him." Veronica Morris, my lawyer, tried her best to defend me. She gathered medical records, character witnesses, anything that could prove I was a good mother. But I barely had the energy to fight. Most days I could barely get dressed. How was I supposed to fight for my daughter when I could not even fight for myself? I was losing Zariah to lies, to manipulation, to a man I had trusted with everything. Then 2 weeks before the hearing, Maya called Russell with something urgent. She said she needed to tell me something, but wanted to be sure first. If you're watching this and wondering what Maya discovered, make sure you subscribe because what she found was absolutely shocking. And let me ask you, would you have suspected something sinister if someone you loved suddenly became ill? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Maya had been watching, listening, paying attention in ways I was too sick to do myself. Zariah had been coming to Russell and Maya's house on weekends, and Maya noticed something was wrong. My 9-year-old daughter would break down in tears, repeating things her father had said to her. Daddy says Mommy's too sick to take care of me. Daddy says I'll be happier with just him. Maya told me later that what struck her most was how coached Zariah seemed, how the phrases sounded memorized, not felt. And the contrast was stark when she looked at 2-year-old Deborah, who was carefree, innocent, unmanipulated. One evening, Maya came to help me around the house. I could barely stand. When they visited with Deborah, I could not even hold my granddaughter properly. My hands shook too much, my arms too weak. Maya would gently take Deborah from me, and I could see the worry in her eyes. That same evening, while I was resting, Maya heard something. Tameen was in the garage, on the phone. His voice was low, but she heard him clearly. "Just keep saying she forgot to pick up Zariah from school," he said to whoever was on the other end. "Make it sound worse than it is." Maya's instinct kicked in. Something was very, very wrong. Over the next 3 weeks, Maya did something extraordinary. While coming over to help me during my illness, she installed small cameras in our kitchen and living room, tiny ones, hidden in plain sight. She told Russell what she suspected, and he was horrified. But he agreed. They needed proof. The cameras captured everything. After 2 weeks of footage, Maya took what she had found to the police. She walked into the station and asked to speak to a detective about attempted murder. Detective Tara Worth took the case. She analysed the footage Maya had gathered. Then she pulled my medical records and had them reviewed by a toxicologist. The diagnosis came back clear as day: heavy metal poisoning. Detective Worth worked directly with Veronica Morris to present this evidence in the hearing. They built a case not just for my divorce defense, but for a criminal prosecution. Maya had spent 2 weeks gathering proof of something unthinkable, and she was about to show everyone. We were back in that courtroom. Maya was sworn in as a character witness, her hand raised, her voice steady. Veronica asked her about her observations of me and Zariah. Maya spoke clearly, methodically. She testified about Zariah's coached statements, the rehearsed phrases that came out of my daughter's mouth. She described how I could barely function during their visits, how I shook too much to hold baby Deborah, how I seemed to be fading away right before their eyes. Then Veronica asked the question that changed everything. "Mrs. Pate, did you investigate these suspicions?" Maya looked directly at the judge. "Yes. I installed cameras in Nala's home with her permission for her safety. What I found, I immediately took to the police." David Garrison shot up from his seat, objecting loudly. But Judge Winter raised her hand. "Given the criminal implications mentioned, I will allow this evidence to be presented," she said. The screens in the courtroom lit up. The first footage showed our kitchen, empty, quiet. Then Tameen walked in, alone. He went to the garage and returned with a small hidden box. My coffee cup sat on the counter, already filled. I watched as my husband's hand reached into that box, pulled out a small container of white powder, and carefully added it to my coffee. He stirred it slowly, deliberately, making sure it dissolved completely. The timestamp was read 5 weeks ago. The screen changed. 4 weeks ago. The same scene, the same careful ritual. 3 weeks ago. Again. A pattern. a deliberate, systematic pattern. The second footage showed Tameen in the garage on the phone. His voice was clear through the audio. Just testify that she can't remember basic things, that she's neglected Zariah, he said to his sister Diane. You know what to say. The third footage showed him coaching his mother Barbara. Tell them about her declining mental state. Make it sound serious. Say you're worried about Zariah's safety. Then came the fourth piece of footage. This one broke me. It showed Tameen in Zariah's bedroom at night, sitting on the edge of her bed. Our 9-year-old daughter looked up at him with trusting eyes as he whispered to her. Mommy's very sick, sweetheart. She might not be able to take care of you much longer. But Daddy will always be here. Daddy will always protect you. The courtroom erupted in gasps. Shocked murmurs filled the space. I looked across at Tameen. His face had drained of all colour. He looked like a ghost. David Garrison was stammering, trying to object, trying to say something, anything to stop what was happening. Veronica's voice cut through the chaos. Your Honour, Detective Tara Worth has confirmed the substance in the footage as a heavy metal compound. Medical records confirm that Mrs. Williams has been suffering from poisoning consistent with prolonged exposure to this substance. My husband of 27 years had been poisoning me, slowly, methodically, deliberately, and he had been coaching our 9-year-old daughter to believe I was the problem. He had been having an affair with someone new, so he wanted to kill me slowly without any suspicion, and he didn't want to lose the marital assets. He wanted all to himself and also my daughter. From the influence of I and Russell, my husband had for a long time had his eyes on my inheritance I inherited from my mother. All these revelations came as a shock to me that I couldn't comprehend. If you're as shocked as that courtroom was, hit that subscribe button because you need to see how this ends. And I want to ask you, how far would you go to protect someone you loved from a monster? Let me know in the comments. Judge Winter banged her gavel hard, calling for order in the courtroom. I am immediately dismissing all of Mr. Williams's claims, she announced, her voice sharp with fury. Emergency full custody of the minor child Zariah Williams is hereby granted to Mrs. Nala Williams. She turned to the bailiff. Detain Mr. Williams, pending police arrival. The courtroom doors opened and police officers walked in. They had been waiting outside the entire time, coordinated by Veronica and Detective Worth. Tameen stood up, his voice rising in desperation. This is insane! That footage is fake! She's lying! But the officers moved toward him with purpose. They were not interested in his protests. That's fabricated evidence. You can't believe this, he shouted as they placed handcuffs on his wrists. David Garrison was already backing away from his client, clearly wanting nothing to do with him anymore. His face showed pure disgust. Russell rushed from the gallery and wrapped his arms around me. I felt his strength holding me up as my legs threatened to give out. Maya stepped down from the witness stand, tears streaming down her face. She had just saved my life, exposed the truth, and she was crying. I thought about Zariah. My baby girl was in the hallway with a victim's advocate. They had not allowed her in the courtroom, thank God. She had not seen her father being arrested. She had not heard the evidence of what he had done. But she would have to know. Eventually, she would have to understand. I collapsed into Russell's arms. Vindication and devastation collided inside me with such force I could not breathe. Yes, the truth was out. Yes, I was vindicated. But the man I had loved, the man I had built a life with, the father of my daughter, had tried to kill me. He had tried to destroy me so completely that I would doubt my own mind, my own abilities, my own worth as a mother. The hardest part was still ahead of me. I would have to help Zariah understand that her father had manipulated her, lied to her, used her as a weapon against me. The man I had trusted with my life had tried to destroy me so completely that I would doubt my own mind. He almost succeeded. Recovery was not just physical. The toxins cleared from my system within weeks once I stopped drinking the coffee Temain had been poisoning. My hands stopped shaking. My mind cleared. The fog lifted. But healing Zariah's trust took much longer. We went to family therapy together, mother and daughter, twice a week, for months. Slowly, painfully, we rebuilt what Temain had tried to break. I watched my 9-year-old daughter move through stages of grief and betrayal. First came confusion. She could not understand why Daddy had lied to her, why he had hurt Mommy. Then came understanding. The therapist helped her see that none of it was her fault, that she had been manipulated by someone who should have protected her. Then came anger. Zariah was furious at her father for what he had done to both of us, for using her, for trying to take her away from me. And finally, slowly, came healing. Temain faced criminal charges, attempted murder, fraud, child psychological abuse, conspiracy. The evidence was overwhelming. His own family members, the ones he had coached to testify against me, turned on him when they realized what he had done. He took a plea deal. 15 years in prison. I kept the house, all the marital assets, and most importantly, the truth and my daughter. 6 months after that courtroom, it was a Sunday evening. I stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen where Temain had poisoned my coffee, but it felt different now. It felt like mine. Russell and Maya sat at the dining table. 2-year-old Deborah was in her high chair, making an absolute mess with her food. Mashed potatoes were everywhere. In her hair, on her face, smeared across the tray. Zariah was helping Maya clean up Deborah, and they were both laughing as my little granddaughter smeared even more potatoes everywhere she could reach. The sound of Zariah's laughter filled the house in a way it had not in over a year. I watched my daughter play with Deborah and watched her hug Maya tightly. Maya, the woman who had saved us both. Zariah understood now that real love meant protecting someone, not manipulating them. Real love meant installing cameras and going to the police when something felt wrong. Real love meant fighting for the truth, even when it was terrifying. My relationship with Russell was stronger than ever. He had married an incredible woman, and I thanked God every day that Maya had been paying attention, that she had trusted her instincts. "Gamma!" Deborah called out, reaching for me with her sticky, potato-covered hands. I walked over and scooped her up, not caring about the mess. She wrapped her little arms around my neck, and I held her tight. Temain had tried to erase me. He had tried to turn my daughter into his weapon, to make me doubt my own mind, my own worth, my own ability to be a mother. He had tried to take everything from me, my health, my home, my child, my life. Instead, he revealed exactly who my real family was. Maya saved my life, and Zariah knew now that a mother's love meant fighting for the truth, even when you could barely stand. If this story moved you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And let me ask you one final question. Have you ever had someone stand up for you when you couldn't stand up for yourself? Tell me about it in the comments. Your story might inspire someone else.